Hello and welcome to another interesting mathematics lesson. My name is Kingsley Linus. In today's lesson, we'll be learning about the need for statistics, part 2. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to recognize the usefulness of statistics for planning purposes. Every dynamic society has a need to plan and manage scarce resources. Hence, there's a need to collect data to aid proper planning and decision-making. This is what statistics is all about. In the part 1 of this lesson, we learned about the definition of statistics. Recall that statistics is a branch of mathematics that deals with the analysis and the measurement of variables. We also learned that there are 2 approaches or techniques to statistics. We learned about the descriptive approach and the inferential approach. The inferential approach can be applied to a large population, while the descriptive approach must be applied to only the sample of study. Let's go on in this lesson to learn about the reasons for collecting data. It is important to note that data collected in statistics can be used for the purpose of proper planning, decision-making, predictive and analytical purposes. There are several organizations that collect data for statistical purposes, and they include National Bureau of Statistics, National Population Commission, hospitals, the Federal Road Safety Corps, and the Nigerian Police. For the sake of emphasis, data collected by these organizations can be used for proper planning, decision-making, analysis, and prediction purposes. Let's go on to find out the usefulness of statistics for planning. Various professionals, individuals, teachers, researchers, and the government make use of statistical data. This is because statistical data provides a sound foundation for decision-making. Here are some important places or some important applications of statistical data. 1, we have the educational system, in population study, drug abuse, voter education, and environmental education. Let's go further in this lesson to find out how statistical data is applied in these areas. In the educational system, statistical data enables the government to determine educational needs of a community. It also aids planning of physical resources. For example, the number of classrooms, laboratories, and other structures required for effective teaching and learning. Next, statistical data is also helpful for planning of human resources. For example, the number of staff to be employed. And lastly, it helps proper record keeping, test scoring, and continuous assessment. The next application area we'll be looking at is population study. The population of any nation is a very important part of that nation. The census of a nation is very important and helpful to the government to enable her make good decisions and properly plan. Let's look at the next area. We have drug abuse. The misuse of drugs has several adverse effects on the populace of any society, especially the youth. Proper data gathering and analysis of data can help government set up agencies and implement policies that would go against the misuse of drugs. So you see, statistical data is very important and helpful. Let's go on in this lesson to learn some more about the usefulness of statistical data in planning and decision making. Voter education. Politics is a crucial part of any nation, and the electioneering process is one that requires training and retraining of the populace of any society. Applying statistical approach to voter education planning presents relevant data needed to determine specific areas that require more resources. Statistical data can inform government on the total number of voters qualified by age, sex, and so on. As intellectual beings living in an evolving ecosystem, we must make conscious effort to learn about our environment. Statistical records, when analyzed, can help us predict and plan towards natural occurrences like erosion, flooding, tornadoes, and so on. Let's look at an exercise to go on in this lesson. The table shows the number of people who tested positive to coronavirus in a community in Nigeria in the first 6 months of the year. Use the table to answer the following questions. Do well to pause the video and answer these questions. I'm sure you are done. The correct answer to question A is June. And the correct answer to question B is 38 persons. The correct answer to question C is 147 persons. And question D says, if you were in a position to make a recommendation to the government, what would your advice be? For me, my recommendation would be good information and proper orientation about viral infections and possible preventive measures should be communicated to the citizens to avoid future recurrence of such. This is where we come to the end of this lesson. But before we go, let's look at a summary of all we've learned. First, we learned that statistics is the practice and science of collecting, organizing, presenting, and analyzing numerical data in large quantities for a specific purpose. Secondly, we learned that data collated in statistics can be used for planning, decision-making, analytical and prediction purposes. And lastly, we learned that statistics has some important useful application in educational system, population study, drug abuse, voter education, environmental education, and so on. So now, I have some test questions for you to try out. Question 1. Which of these is not an important application where statistical data is used? A. Drug abuse. B. Extracurricular activities. C. Voter education. D. Environmental education. The correct answer is option B. Extracurricular activities. Question 2 says, which of the following is not a benefit for using statistics for planning in education? A. Helps the government determine the educational needs of a community. B. Helps inform the planning of physical resources like number of classrooms, laboratory, and so on. C. Aids planning for families to space their children for proper school enrollment. Or D. Development of record keeping, test scoring, continuous assessment, and so on. The correct answer is option C. Wow! I'm sure you've learned a lot about statistical data gathering. Till we meet again in another lesson. Bye-bye.